This thing's been a little slow. Here we go. Come on. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I'm Mac Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages, the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel, also on Instagram and Twitter, and also on Zodiac TV. Please subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel for all the great Northeast Streaming Sports shows. We have a website at nessp.com where you can get information on the shows, our guests like one we have today, bios, links to the stores that are there. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, with guest host Dr. Paul Semendinger, author and blog founder and owner of Start Spreading the News, bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Great.
Good morning. Good morning, guys.
So as you folks know out there, every Saturday, and normally Dr. Semendinger is part of this, the doc joins us for a spirited debate on all sports topics where we debate. And good morning to David Guyette, who's joining us right off the rip. Good having you in today, David. And good morning to you also, Tom Kelly, who comes in every day almost with us. So we're glad to have you guys on board. And you'll be hearing me, Jack, and Doc going at it a little bit with debates. Doc is normally the man of reason in these debates, as me and Jack get a little emotional as we get going here. So guys,
don't get emotional. I just get mad at you, Mac. There's a difference.
Well, I think anger is an emotion, Jack, but that's okay. I don't want to debate whether it's an emotion or not. So, but first, folks, what we do is we talk a little bit about the Yankees, since this is the Doc's. This is where he's most expertly. I most as an expert, I should say. I was trying to make up a word that didn't work. And Jack also has a great history with the Yankees. He's very well informed. And me, I've been a Yankee fan all my life, and I've been around for at least 20 years. So I'm a little younger maybe than Jack. And I don't know if Doc's younger than me or not, but that's beside the point. So we come up with our first Yankee poll question for the morning, and the producer of the show goes out to 3 different Yankee groups and proposes a question to them. And the question for the poll this week was, which of these is the most memorable home run in Yankee history? And I gave them 4 choices. One was the Bucky Dent home run against the Boston Red Sox when they came back and they won the division. The second one was a Chris Chambliss leadoff home run, a walk-off home run, I should say, against the Kansas City Royals, where they actually, put the Royals away for the championship. The Boone home run against the Red Sox, a very big home run. And the last one I gave him was the Bernie Williams home run in the World Series against the Braves, which really put the Yankees in position to win the World Series. So let's start with Jack. Jack, which of those 4 would you say would be the most memorable?
I feel I just got ambushed, Mac, because I didn't give it any thought, and you're asking me now, and wow. I mean, the Chris Chambliss home run against the Kansas City Royals in '76 was a classic, and the way the right fielder leaped up. And you didn't know until the last moment that he'd hit the home run, and then him running around the bases and the fans mobbing the field, which thankfully we don't have anymore today. But those were the scenes back in the day. Could you imagine Chambliss couldn't make it to home plate and they waved the home off? Technically, that could have been done by the umpires, and they could have held the Yankee organization accountable for that. And the guy who I want to give a lot of credit to, Doc will remember this, to Mac, Mickey Rivers waiting for Chris Chambliss at home plate. That took a lot of guts with the mob scene. Everyone else cleared out, and Chambliss grabbing his helmet. Dramatic. Bucky Dent's home run, but that took place in the 7th inning. It didn't end the game. And, of course, the Aaron Boone walk-off homer in what was maybe the greatest Yankee game of all time. I mean, it was if I had to pick what the fans, I think, are going to say, I think the fans, you'll let us know after, would have said the Bucky Dent home run. But for me, the most dramatic one was the Chris Chambliss home run, because it was so classic with the right fielder leaping and barely missing the ball. And then the scene of him running around the bases, the madhouse, and sending the Yankees to the World Series for the first time in 12 years, ending the drought.
Excellent. Tom, I'm glad you joined us. Good luck with your show over there at the Patterson Avenue Fanatics show. How you doing, Keith? Good to see you this morning. Doc, what do you think? I mean, those are all four could be a choice for any Yankee fan. The Bernie Williams home run, Aaron Boone, Chambliss, or Bucky Dent. Who would be your most memorable?
I think the fans would most resonate with the Bucky Dent home run, because I think that one you see more often. And I think that's the one that, even though it didn't end the game, it was against the Red Sox, and it propelled the Yankees to the American League Championship Series in '78. And Bucky Dent is talked about a lot more. People talk about Bucky Dent, and it's still a name, I think, that you hear, especially when somebody unknown hits a home run. It's like, oh, that's like Bucky Dent's home run. Remember when Bucky Dent hit the home run? And they talk about it an awful lot. And I think, like, even on the Yankee network, on the S network, they show that game a lot, and much more frequently, I think, than the '76 game when Chambliss hit the home run. The most important home run of the bunch, I think, would be Chambliss's, because, again, as Jack just said, that put the Yankees into the playoffs or into the World Series for the first time. That was 1976, for the first time since 1964. So it broke that terrible period of time when the Yankees were terrible. The Boone home run was a great game. It was a classic game, but the Yankees did not win the World Series that year. And the difference between that and the Chambliss home run, because the Yankees didn't win it in '76 either, was in '76, it was like, wow, they finally made it to the World Series. But by 2003, I guess when Boone hit the home run, you almost expected the Yankees to win the World Series every year. And the fact that they didn't was a big letdown. So that's how I'd see the three. Or the four. The Bernie home run, I don't think is really remembered as much anymore. There were a lot of big home runs in '96. Jim Leyritz had a big home run off Mark Wohlers, and Bernie had a couple home runs throughout the playoffs, et cetera. So I don't think that's as memorable out of those four.
Well, guys, my opinion, of course, is right along the lines with y'all. I think Chris Chambliss's home run, to me, was the one that turned the whole thing around for the Yankees, that actually got them, going to the World Series again after I lived through the years of mediocrity to bad ball playing by the Yankees. And, Bucky Dent, I think Bucky Dent's home run is more remembered because he wasn't a power hitter at all. I mean, to get it over that big green monster, they, at the last minute, they still didn't think it was going to go over. And Bucky Dent went on to become the World Series MVP after that, if you guys remember. I mean, he had a heck of a postseason. So I would pick Chris Chambliss, but you're all right. It is the Bucky Dent one where, that ball just barely made it over the top of the green monster. And Chris Chambliss was second, followed by Boone and then Bernie Williams. So out of those four, it definitely were right. The fans did take Bucky Dent, but I agree with both of you that home run by Chris Chambliss is really. And if you remember, George Steinbrenner was really mad at Chris Chambliss because he was supposed to be there for power, and he really didn't hit a lot of home runs for the Yankees. I mean, he hit double digit, but he wasn't a 25, 30 home run guy. He was mainly a 15 home run guy.
Well, you mentioned a good point, Mac. The good point you mentioned, Chambliss was expected to hit some home runs. Bucky Dent wasn't. So it's the theater of the unexpected, which made it more dramatic, the Bucky Dent home up, because who would expect Bucky Dent to supply the power in a game like that?
Yeah, I mean, that is at least, just to make it to the wall was good for Bucky Dent. I mean, he hit, 5 home runs a year or something ridiculous like that. So, and Bucky Dent, like I said, had a hell of a postseason after that. So, guys, we'll flip right into the Yankee trivia question. Where I try to stump to the most knowing people in Yankee history. And once in a while I get them, but not too much. So, guys, today's Yankee trivia. Who did the great Greg Nettles replace at third base when he became the Yankee third baseman?
Well, that is a good question there. I mean, Greg Nettles, he played for the Twins and the Indians beforehand, right, Doc? Both of them. And I'm trying to think who he came over for, but that's irrelevant. Who he replaced at third base. Unbelievable. He came over, to the Yankees at around 72 or something. I don't remember. Wow, I'm kind of stumped on it. I'm kind of stumped on this one. I mean, obviously it wasn't Clete Boyer. There was a gap. That is a good question. I mean, sometimes, a guy's a fixture at a position and you just don't remember who he replaced. I'm stumped here.
What do you got, Doc?
I think that we're talking 1973 when Nettles came over. And so my guess would be that you're going to say Celerino Sanchez.
Yes, I am, Doc. Doc gets it again. Wow. So that I didn't remember that one either. I didn't remember Celerino Sanchez. So I don't know how good a player he was or not, but of course Greg Nettles set the world on fire in that World Series.
Yeah.
So Celerino Sanchez was the one that Greg Nettles took over for. So we're going to get into the debate show. Of course, you all know there was a draft last night. We did a draft show the night before. All the locals we covered. This is kind of going into that area because one of the, I guess, most famous draft steals in history was the day the Patriots took Tom Brady in the 6th round. He came out of the University of Michigan, where he had a decent career there. He was going back and forth as the starter with 2 other guys during his years there. But the big question is, we all know Tom Brady and how great he is, but is Tom Brady the luckiest player in NFL history? And Jack, you're up.
A funny thing, I could throw a trivia question at you guys that I think you'll probably get. When Tom Brady was the quarterback at Michigan, what Yankee third baseman did he beat out for the starting quarterback job at Michigan? Guys.
Wasn't that Drew Henson?
Drew Henson, right. Drew Henson, okay? And Drew Henson is a good lesson, perhaps. If you're a great 2-sport guy, maybe you should concentrate on one sport the way Kyler Murray is doing in football instead of playing for the Oakland A's. We know Deion Sanders did both football and baseball successfully, as did Bo Jackson, but Drew Henson never quite took off on either sport. Okay, is Tom Brady lucky or not to be as great as he was? I mean, is that the question? They have had the success in his career. Everyone, of course he is. Every single athlete, whoever, played.
The question is he the luckiest, Jack? Not is he luckiest?
Is he the luckiest? No, he's not the luckiest. Okay. I mean, you make your own luck, and Tom Brady's made his own luck. 10 Super Bowls in 7 years. You can't get that lucky. Mac, you can go out, you could win the lotto once. You buy a lotto ticket. You win the big jackpot, 3 times, let's say. That's not luck. You should be investigated that you had inside information. No one can be that lucky. I mean, come on. Tom Brady now, even with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is his 7th Super Bowl. He's trying for an 8th one, trying to go to his 11th Super Bowl in total. All 22 starters are coming back. That's unheard of. A number of them were free agents. They could have gotten money elsewhere. Why are they coming back? In large part because of Tom Brady. He recruited a number of guys. He's having them come back. That's not luck. He put a team together in Tampa Bay. He did it because of the type of player he is, the type of leader he is, and then he performed on the field. And as you say, Mac, a lot of times, the record speaks for itself. I mean, no one's accomplished what Tom Brady has done. Recently, Joe Montana said Tom Brady, in his opinion, is the greatest quarterback of all time. No one can now say there's been a greater quarterback than Tom Brady. Listen, when one of the Super Bowls they won against the Atlanta Falcons in the second half, they have this percentage of accuracy as far as the team's likelihood to win the game. It went up to 99% that the Falcons were going to win the game statistically. And Tom Brady found a way to rally the Patriots back, meaning he had no margin of error at some point in the second half, and he rallied them back to win that game. I mean, whether he's done it for more than one franchise. He's done it at New England. He came to Tampa Bay. He makes the players around him better. I mean, you might say, oh, he has all these good players around him. You have to do it to win in sports. You have to have other good players around you, especially in football. And look how long he's playing. Is that luck? Is that a question of a guy who has such a great workout regimen to keep him? How many athletes play that well at an advanced age? Of course, there's the element of luck he hasn't been injured, because anyone could get injured. There's luck there. But I defy you to name more than a couple of other athletes who performed so well at an advanced age. He's 43 years old. He should have been done a few years ago. Yet, he's maybe as good as he's, ever been, if you want to ignore his age. So, no, Tom Brady is not the luckiest athlete by far. He's just plain out great, and case closed.
Case closed. The case is never closed when you're talking to me, Jack. There's a saying every successful person will tell you, I've heard him say it countless amount of times, I was in the right place at the right time. Luck is something we don't talk about because no one wants to admit that they're lucky, Jack. Even the lottery winners that you mentioned will tell you about a system they have, right? They didn't just go and do a quick pick. They used their parents' birthday, their address. There's a system they all have. Tom Brady did not turn a losing organization around, Jack. Far from it. I mean, when he became the quarterback of the New England Patriots, they had just won a Super Bowl about 4 years before. The Patriots were a division winner, being in the playoffs every year before he became the starting quarterback. He got the starting quarterback job because Drew Bledsoe, the starting quarterback, got hit out of bounds and injured by an aggressive linebacker of the Jets. Bledsoe was out. Brady was in. Now, Bledsoe became healthy again. But he had a coach named Bill Belichick to say, hey, listen, we're going to ride with Tom Brady right now. We're not going to let Bledsoe get in. Even though Bledsoe went in when Brady got hurt and threw a touchdown pass to win the championship game. Now, most coaches, Jack, as you know, when you name a certain quarterback, if they get injured, they get their job back as soon as they're uninjured, as soon as they're healthy to play. Well, Bill Belichick was a little bit smarter than that. So here's the scenario, okay? Brady comes onto a team, as I said, that won that was in the Super Bowl in 1997. He's not a top pick, because if he was a top pick, he would have ended up on a bad team, Jack, an awful team, sort of like what Peyton Manning did, right? He went to the Colts. The Colts were terrible. Well, Peyton Manning kind of helped the Colts go into playoffs. I think it was the second year in the Super Bowl soon after. Matt Stafford was on the worst team in the NFL. As you can see, Matt Stafford really is great quarterback, never had any success. Phil Simms went to the worst team in the NFL. He was good enough, and the coaching staff was good enough to finally get to a Super Bowl. Jim Plunkett went to the Boston Patriots, Jack, the worst team in the NFL. The Rookie of the Year, the Heisman Trophy winner, went there. And if you look at Joe Burrow right now, supposedly the greatest college quarterback in history, where's he at right now? The Cincinnati Bengals, right? So he goes in the 6th round because he's a late draft round pick. He goes to a very good team, to maybe the greatest franchise in NFL history, under probably the greatest coach in NFL history, and probably maybe even the greatest owner in NFL history. You look at the owner who doesn't think of it as a shiny object or just a business write-off. He's totally involved in the team. And as the Pats start their run as Super Bowl champions, Jack, that's not Tom Brady we see today. Tom Brady was handing the ball off, making throws. He had a great defense. He had a good offensive line. And probably the greatest kicker in NFL history. Without that great kicker, he would have never made it to those first 2 Super Bowls. He wouldn't have won the championships. Adam Vinatieri kicks a field goal in the driving snow to get him to where he was going. Probably the best clutch kicker in NFL history. New England Patriots had the greatest defense in the league at that time. They had one of the best special teams in the league at that time. And you have a tuck rule where Tom Brady actually fumbles the ball that the Raiders are still crying about today. Can you imagine if Jim Kelly had Adam Vinatieri, Jack? He would have won the Super Bowl against the Giants. He might have been a Super Bowl champion more than once if he had Adam Vinatieri. So now the Pats go to all these championships, go to all these Super Bowls, and come away from the ground and pound. Why? Because the greatest coach in football history sees that the team has got to adapt and grow. So he opens up the offense for him. He doesn't do like other coaches do that say, this is my way or no way at all. He ends up going 4 wide, and the Patriots have one of the most explosive offenses in the league. They develop a tight end named Gronk. They pick up a guy, one of the greatest wide receivers in the history of the NFL. And the marriage, as they call it, between Tom Brady and the greatest coach of all time starts coming to an end. Tom Brady now, he has the luck of being on the greatest team of all time and gets to choose where he's going. Unlike some quarterbacks, Jack, they get traded away to a garbage team. Can you imagine if Tom Brady was was the quarterback of the New York Jets, the Cleveland Browns during that time? Could you imagine what his record would be right now? How many Super Bowls do you think Tom Brady would have won on the New York Jets, Jack? You think he would have won 6? You think he would have won 2? I don't think so. I don't think Tom Brady would have won 1 Super Bowl with the New York Jets. I am not doubting Tom Brady as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's easily the most successful. But if he was on a team like the Detroit Lions, I guarantee you he wouldn't have won a Super Bowl. You have an opportunity in life where you get picked up by one of the best teams in football history, playing under one of the greatest coaches in football history, for one of the greatest owners in football history. And then when you want to leave, you go to a Tampa Bay team that was 7-9, Jack. And the reason why they didn't make playoffs is because the quarterback threw 30 interceptions. Otherwise, they were in the playoffs. You already have a team of weapons, a great defense. And so you recruit Gronk and you bring in over AB. That's what he did, Jack. He didn't go get the whole team. He brought over 2 pieces of a puzzle and maybe a running back. on a team that was great already. So when you say Tom Brady is not lucky or is not the luckiest, you're dead wrong, Jack. There is no player ever that has ever played football more luckier than Tom Brady. Great, definitely. Definitely. A man is great. But he was put in a position where he was in the right place at the right time, Jack. There's no doubt about it.
He is so lucky to go to 10 Super Bowls, Tom Brady. 10 Super Bowls. Oh, what a shame. Had Jim Kelly had Adam Vinatieri, he would have gone to all the Super Bowls. That doesn't say much for Peyton Manning, who had Adam Vinatieri come over to the Colts as a free agent and play with Peyton Manning for a lot of years. And I didn't see Peyton Manning go to a lot of Super Bowls with the Colts. So as far as, the Adam Vinatieri factor, I don't know. And by the way, the Patriots did not win a Super Bowl a few years before Tom Brady went there. They went to one and they lost to the
I didn't say they won, Jack. Don't put words in my mouth.
I thought you said they did one. We'll have to go to that tape. Okay, but the bottom line, they did. As far as Gronk goes, him being so lucky to have Gronk, Gronk came out of retirement for him. Okay, to go to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, a great team at 7-9. So you mean the only reason they were 7-9 because Jameis Winston would throw some interceptions?
30, Jack. Not 30.
Said 30. But he went to a team that was 7-9 on the season. So I don't want to hear, if they had such a great defense, they would not have been just 7-9. And they did have an outstanding defense. It's a team game. Tom Brady could not have gone to a Super Bowl if he didn't have the supporting cast around him. No player can. No player in the NFL can do that, period. Okay? No player in Major League Baseball can go to a World Series if he doesn't have the supporting cast around him, no matter how great he is. I mean, Willie Mays, his long career, he won one World Series. Hank Aaron, his long career, he won one World Series total because they didn't quite have the full supporting cast around them. They had good players, but, not quite the full supporting cast. Basketball, you can do a little more, because it's only 5 guys playing at a time. You get 1 or 2 impact guys more. You might have more of an effect. So I don't want to hear that with Tom Brady. I mean, look at his age. Let me just do that comparison. He's 43 years old. In the history of football, how many players have performed at this advanced age the way he's going now, and they're favorites to win the Super Bowl? So let's just talk about the idea that he's playing at top level at this age.
Jack,
and really no one else has.
Quarterbacks don't get hit anymore. Jack, listen, Jack. Back in the old NFL, they could rip the quarterback's helmet off their head and not get penalized. What are you talking about? Of course he's playing for 43 at 43. That makes no sense. They can't even touch the quarterback anymore. You could play quarterback in the NFL right now, Jack, if you could throw the ball. What are you talking about?
But he was playing before the rules were changed.
Oh, no. You learned
still was at top form.
Listen, they put in the Tom Brady rule that you couldn't hit a quarterback in the knees no more because he got hit in the knees. Come on. Let's be honest. All I'm saying, Jack, I'm not denying what a great quarterback he is. I'm not denying that at all. He is. There's no doubt about it. But how many quarterbacks have had Bill Belichick for 10 years? How many quarterbacks have played?
Bill Belichick was 7-9 last year without Tom Brady, and Bill Belichick for 5 years.
Yeah, with Cam Newton and everybody left on defense, he still went 7-9. With the whole defensive team gone.
You're bragging that he went 7-9?
With that team? Yes.
I'm going to give you just a stat. Bill Belichick in the 6 years without Tom Brady, has gone to the playoffs 1 time in 6 years. I'm counting the 5 years he coached the Cleveland Browns. And the 1 year without him in New England. Belichick's a great coach. Listen.
Let's count the years Tom Brady didn't play on the Patriots, Jack. right? Let's count the years that they had the other quarterbacks in there. What are the Patriots' records when Brady didn't play, Jack? Look that up real quick. I know they went 11-5 one year, and I think
they went 11-5 the season Brady was injured. They didn't make the playoffs that year, by the way.
They went 11-5.
But they were coming off a season, okay, in which they were 15-1 in the regular season and then won 2 playoff games. So they actually were a few games worse.
Oh, please.
Without Brady in there.
They went 11-5, and with Garoppolo, I think they were 2-0. So come on.
Brady to you. So let's sum it up before we go to Doc. You're saying Brady is the luckiest athlete ever.
I said he's the luckiest NFL player ever, Jack.
The luckiest NFL player ever, okay?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, the idea he could stay injury-free until 43, whatever, Brady might agree with you on that. From that perspective, yes, that he was fortunate to be injury-free, but that's with anyone. But his workout regimens are amazing. It even ticked off the Patriot organization. He has his own trainers. They do certain things, and it obviously worked for him.
Doc, before you go, let me ask Jack one more question. Do you think Dan Marino was a better quarterback than, and as far as throwing the ball, than Tom Brady?
I wouldn't argue if you said yes.
Do you think that John Elway may be a better passer than Tom Brady?
No.
Do you think he's a better athlete?
Better athlete, yeah.
You think
John Elway should have been playing right field for the Yankees. That's another story.
Do you think Johnny Unitas was a better pure passer, Joe Montana, than Tom Brady?
No, not Joe Montana. He rolled out, a lot. Tom Brady was a little better passing in the pocket.
How about Johnny Unitas?
Yeah, well, Johnny Unitas didn't have much mobility. Okay,
I'm just asking. It was Tom Brady. I'm just asking.
It's a different era with passing. Yeah, you can make that argument. Sure.
So, what's the difference between Johnny Unitas, Dan Marino, and Tom Brady?
Listen, if I'm going to,
you don't want to answer that question, do you, Jack? What's the difference between Johnny Unitas and Dan Marino and Tom Brady? What's the only difference?
Because one guy has better instincts, he finds a way to get it done. Listen, I could break down a baseball player, and I can tell you that Mickey Mantle's better than Babe Ruth. Because I can say Mickey Mantle can hit a ball further than Babe Ruth, and he can run faster. Okay, I can break it down that way.
Debate to what we're talking about. The biggest difference between Johnny Unitas and Dan Marino and Tom Brady is they didn't play for the Patriots. That's the biggest difference. That's the biggest difference.
Right. And Tom Brady proved your point by going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and not being able to win as soon as he left the Patriots. Where did
Johnny Unitas go after he was playing with the Colts, Jack?
San Diego Chargers, and they didn't win that.
And what kind of team was San Diego Chargers, Jack?
I don't remember.
Terrible, Jack. That's why he didn't last that long.
Maybe because Johnny U wasn't as great as you thought he was to elevate him.
Okay? You're the one to say he's better. You're the one to say he's better, Jack. Go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry. I'm hogging this. I want you to get your thoughts.
So here we go. You guys made a lot of points, and so it's going to take me a couple of moments here. Tom Brady might be one of the unluckiest quarterbacks ever because when he lost those Super Bowls, he lost on teams. Eli Manning, I believe, making some unbelievable throws, the David Tyree helmet catch and things like that. That was one of the flukiest catches. And I think 2 years later, whatever it was, Manningham or whatever on a great fourth down catch. Again, I don't have football memorized the way you guys do, but if those unbelievably fortunate plays by the Giants don't happen, Tom Brady wins 2 more Super Bowls. Yeah, that makes him one of the unluckiest guys. I don't follow football closely enough to know the whole facts about Deflategate, but I know that was a big debate, and people had arguments on both sides and all that kind of stuff. And they held that against Tom Brady, that somehow he had cheated, and other people say, no, that happens all the time or whatever. But there have been things that have impacted negatively on his career. Now, the fact that he was picked in the 6th round, which is the only reason he went to the Patriots. No. He went to the Patriots in the 6th round because every single other team passed up on him for all those other rounds. The great quarterbacks go to the worst teams because they're the ones that are picked 1, 2, 3, or 4 or whatever, and those are the people that pick first in the draft. But once you get through the draft once or twice, anybody could grab any player. So he could have gone to any team. The Patriots were smart enough to grab him, and Bill Belichick was smart enough to take a risk on him. You know who's the luckiest player? The guy who played for one of the greatest owners, who played for one of the greatest managers, who then won – who went to a team that had won 3 the World Series the previous year, the World Series the year before that, and the World Series 2 years before that. He really wasn't a great player. He just happened to go on to a great team, and that guy was named Mickey Mantle. I mean, you can make that argument, right? Like, Mickey Mantle wasn't great. He took over for a great team with a great manager who had a great owner, and the Yankees had already won the World Series. So he wasn't really that great.
Doc, the only thing you're saying there that is wrong, Mickey Mantle could have been a great player on any team. There's no doubt about that. I mean,
Tom Brady would have been too.
That's not necessarily true, Doc, because when Tom Brady first came in the league, the Patriots were already established. They already had a great team. This is what I'm saying.
The Yankees.
Most quarterbacks come into a league. I'm saying Mickey Mantle would have flourished on other teams. Tom Brady would not have flourished on the Jets. Tom Brady would not have flourished on the Lions. That would not have happened because they didn't have the team to support him. Baseball is a little bit different than football. Baseball is more individual than football. I mean, you can make plays on baseball that turn a game around just by yourself. The quarterback relies on every player on that offense to do their job right to make that play successful. I mean, the line's got to block. The center's got to snap the ball to you. The wide receiver's got to run the right route. I mean, there's a continuance of things that happens to make that individual play work. It's not like just hitting a home run. You don't just do that. There's no, you can't throw the football out of the stadium and get a touchdown. The guy's got to catch.
Mickey Mantle could have hit 536 homers and been like Willie Mays or Hank Aaron and get that one World Series.
And like what Carlos says here too, right? Okay, he had some luck with those catches, but he was also unlucky when the Seattle Seahawks didn't run the ball down by the end zone. So they did win a game because.
Wait. Doc's point, Matt. Doc mentioned the Super Bowl game where they had the helmet catch. And the Giants scored late, and they basically won the game. Tom Brady had something like 34 seconds left, and he nearly pulled it out with a long pass to Randy Moss at the end. He took the Patriots down the field for a touchdown with a couple of minutes left before that drive by the Giants.
Right.
So he led them back on top. And the other Super Bowl he lost to the Eagles, he set a record for passing yardage, but because Bill Belichick refused to play Malcolm Jenkins at the corner, and the Patriot defense was dreadful that game, he had a great game against the Eagles in that loss, the way he performed.
Yeah, well,
Let me ask you this, Mac. Baseball. I just want to make your point. You used passing. Who had more power, Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle? Who had more power? Not who was a better home run hitter. Who had more power? Who hit a
good? I mean, they tape measured Mantle's home run. I think it was 550 feet, if I'm correct. But there's rumor that Babe Ruth hit one 575.
Who had more power, Mantle or Ruth? Who could hit it further? That's what I want to know.
That's a great question. Mantle's known for the tape measured shots, but
yeah.
Right, and I've
who
heard.
could run faster, Mickey? I could say Mickey was a better player. I could break it down into little segments.
That has nothing to do with the topic we're talking about, though, Jack. We're saying who was the luckiest NFL player in history, and the reason why I say that is look where Tom Brady is at because of where he first started. All right, this is where he first started. He had no challenge before him, like a Dan Marino had, like a Peyton Manning had, like maybe a Johnny Unitas had. He didn't have a challenge of turning one of the worst teams into the best. That was not his challenge. His challenge was to go in there in the beginning, to do his best job so the Patriots could win. And again, we say, look at Tom Brady won this one. No, Tom Brady did not win a Super Bowl, Jack. The New England Patriots won a Super Bowl.
And the team won. Tom Brady is
the Tampa Bay defense is what won that Super Bowl, not Tom Brady. That's not even a discussion.
You want to know something? Half of the 6th-round draft choices don't even make the team. Tom Brady was in danger of getting cut when he came to training camp.
I agree.
He had to come and show them what he could do. The idea he went out there, he grabbed the job. Okay,
I agree with that, Jack. I don't listen. I am not putting Tom Brady down, though it sounds like I am. I am not. I think Tom Brady is an unbelievable quarterback and one heck of a competitor. Probably maybe one of the fiercest competitors of all time. All I'm saying is that when we talk about Tom Brady, it's like when he came into the league, he was throwing touchdown passes and winning games. That is not true. And he was the benefit of being on a great organization from the get-go, Jack. We're not talking about a team that was the Detroit Lions. We're not
the organization had the benefit of having him as well. It's a partnership.
Yeah, but they didn't pick him up thinking this, Jack. All right? What I'm saying, Jack, is most great quarterbacks that we think are going to be great end up on the worst teams in football. Joe Burrows, prime example, right? He goes to and the only reason why Miami got Tua was because of their record. That's the only reason why Tua went there. That's the only reason. The Chargers got Herbert because of their record. So they're there to try to turn teams around, Jack. Tom Brady did not turn the Patriots around. He became an important piece when he first got there, when he took over. Now, as he grows, Belichick's smart enough to know to use him like that. I mean, he could have stuck like Schottenheimer, who just ground pound all the time. It's my way or the highway. Belichick
You know what Joe Namath said? Tom Brady, he says, unlike himself and the other great quarterbacks, never seems to make a mistake in a big situation. He says, we all make mistakes from time to time. How often does Tom Brady ever make a mistake?
I don't know. I don't know, Jack. I wouldn't be able to count them. I'd have to go back and review them. But I'm sure.
Exactly. And
right.
Others, we have glaring instances where, they didn't get it done in a certain situation.
Right. Listen, again, I'm not saying Tom Brady is not a great quarterback. That's not the debate. The debate is how lucky has he been as the successful CEOs say that run these multi-billion-dollar companies. I was in the right place at the right time, man. And if he went to another team like the Jets, a bad team, or he went to the Detroit Lions, do you think Tom Brady would even have 2 Super Bowls today? Do you think that? Honestly?
Honestly, a player like Tom Brady he'd find a way. A guy like Tom Brady finds a way. He gets the players around him. He finds a way. Would he be at 10 Super Bowls?
Would he even have
10 Super Bowls is outrageous.
And we're not even talking about the.
Listen, the Patriots have won 1 Super Bowl without Tom Brady.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to make that argument.
No doubt.
Would they have even won a Super Bowl? I don't know.
Of course they would have. There's no doubt about that.
They wouldn't have been. Would they have been to 9 Super Bowls and have won 6?
No way. But they would have won a few. But I sure can make the argument that Tom Brady playing on the Jets wouldn't have won one.
So it's just a number. So instead of winning 7 Super Bowls out of 10, had there been another quarterback, they would have won 3 out of 6. So just the idea Tom Brady means something for a few Super Bowls says a lot. I mean, winning 1 Super Bowl is the achievement of a lifetime. I'm a Jet fan. Give me 1 Super Bowl and the rest of my lifetime, I might be smiling. But
all I'm saying, Jeff, is if Tom Brady ended up on the Jets, he wouldn't have won 1 Super Bowl. If he was on the Browns at that time, he wouldn't have won 1 Super Bowl.
He would have been with Bill Parcells as his coach. And the year that they got eliminated a game before going to the Super Bowl, there's a great chance they would have won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady as their quarterback. But listen,
maybe.
let's say this is a debate to be continued because we could be going on and on and on about this.
Yes, we could.
I
Yes,
think
we
most,
could.
yeah.
Because I find it very interesting, and I'm going to tell you why, Doc. Not only was Tom Brady on the greatest team, modern team in history, the Patriot played in the weakest division those years in the history of the NFL with the Jets, the Bills, and who the hell else was in that league, Jack?
Miami.
I mean, they were awful. That was 8 wins off the rip when they played. And I just think, and I'm not trying to put Tom Brady down because he's a great quarterback. But
6 wins. There are three other teams in the division.
Yes.
So they're automatic wins in the NFL.
Eight. Every year they had 8 wins there. I don't think
Miami, the Jets, and the Bills win their division. No one else. They played them each 2 times.
Right. So
That's 6, Mac.
No, it's
2 times 3 = 6.
So Miami, the Jets, Buffalo's only 4 teams in that division. Weren't there 5?
And New England doesn't play themselves.
Well, they should. They got 2 wins for that too, Jack. So anyway, guys, that was interesting. I just wanted to bring up the point because we all talk about how great Tom Brady is, and he is great. But let me tell you, there's something to be said for a quarterback ending up on the greatest franchise in football history for those years under the greatest coach. And we seem to forget that. And listen, as Tampa Bay showed us in the Super Bowl, if you think Tom Brady won that game, you don't know nothing about football because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is one that won that Super Bowl. So, but anyway, so guys, that was very spirited. Doc,
let me compliment the Buccaneer defense quickly. It says a lot for their defense, how much they improved in that 1 year from going 7-9 to Super Bowl champs. They really picked it up in that 1 year. So let's praise the Tampa Bay Buccaneer defense for suddenly, becoming a great defense in the last year when Tom Brady arrived.
Well, you got to remember when the ball's not being intercepted all the time, and you're not giving up touchdowns, and you're not starting off at the 20-yard line of your own 20-yard line. There's something to be said about that, Jack. We're already at 45 minutes, and I knew this was going to be a good one because I knew you guys love Tom Brady. So I had to start it off with that one. We got time for maybe a short one here, Jack, and why I'm saying short is because I don't know what to say to this, really. You're talking about Lindor maybe not having a.
Well, Lindor's a longer topic. I don't think that's.
For you, it is? Okay. Oh, for me, it ain't. So.
I think the playoff format, what we were talking about, is a shorter one than that.
Do the NBA or NHL, which is the most exciting? Go ahead.
Right. I think that's a shorter because Lindor and the baseball ones, I want to spend a little more time.
Let me start that off then. I think the NBA, of course, is going to be more exciting because it's covered more. Real simply, the best playoff series I think would be the hockey in person, but the way it's covered, it won't be because they just don't cover it like they cover basketball. Basketball, we know all the players. We know by first names. We know LeBron. We know MJ. We know Kyrie by their first names. There ain't too many first names in hockey. Basketball is more personal to people because you're actually on the court with the thing. There's a huge ball, Jack. You can see the ball. Hockey, you can't see that little puck on TV. They've tried to do something where they're putting a little red spot on or such so you could follow it. The action is so fast in hockey, it's almost impossible to keep up with it on TV. And I'm just talking TV because to me, hockey games live, there's nothing like it because it's total competition. More bigger celebrities go to basketball games, Jack. You see them all there, Jack Nicklaus. You have former baseball players. You have current football players. They're all at the games. It's like a big party. They're sitting right on the court. And, just on replay alone, I mean, how many replays do you see of a hockey shot compared to a slam dunk? How many replays do you see of a shot on goal or a block shot as opposed to a glove save by hockey? You just don't see it on sports. So you know the stories. The great Nets super team is going to the championship according to all the experts, all the drama there, all these players that have different, components to them. Nobody can get get along with Kyrie. Harden's a ball hog. Is Durant the greatest basketball player in the league? And then you got LeBron over there on the side with Davis. And it's just covered more, Jack. It's more exciting. The networks make it more exciting. And I don't know how televised hockey, can make it any better. Is the action better in hockey? To me, it is. I mean, in person, there's checking, there's everything going around. You got some great rivalries with the New York teams and surprise teams, but we just don't know the players and the other divisions like we know in basketball. We know the greats in basketball. You can ask anybody in the street who the best player in basketball is. Top 5. I don't think they can give you the top 5 best hockey players. So this is why, to me, the NBA playoffs will be more exciting, Jack, than the hockey. It's going to be the coverage, not the actual game.
Now, Mac, you tend to go outside the box. The question, and you acknowledged it at the end, is what's more exciting, the NBA playoffs or the NHL playoffs?
Right.
But you're going outside the box by saying how basketball could be more of an exciting sport in general because of certain players. We're not talking about the certain players. Obviously, unless you're a hardcore hockey fan, you're going to know more NBA players, okay? We could start naming some NBA stars more than we can NHL stars. We're just talking about the playoffs here. And the playoffs, as predictable in the NBA as wrestling used to be on TV, we always used to know who was going to win the match. I mean, we always used to know if the champion was defending his title on regular TV against a guy who wasn't a big name, that an upset wasn't going to take place. And that's how it is in the NBA playoffs. The top teams are going to roll over the weaker teams getting into the NBA playoffs. We know the Nets and Sixers on a probable collision course, they're going to win their preliminary matchups. It kind of happens all the time. Hockey, it's not that way. The lowest seeds have been known to bump off the highest seed. A team that just barely sneaks into the playoffs at the end has a heck of a chance of beating a team that was a powerhouse in the NHL during the regular season. The fans get a little more, motivated, I think, at least the NHL fan base for the, hockey playoffs. And listen, hockey's more about team. NBA is about team and individual because there's so many compelling stars in the NBA. And you look at their storyline, can LeBron win another championship? Will the Nets big three? Will they come through, and win the championship? And we start giving names. With hockey, we talk about the team. We really don't talk about will Ovechkin with the Washington Capitals win the championship, with Sidney Crosby with the Penguins. We don't, we talk about the team ahead of them. Also, ESPN got a new contract with the NHL, so hopefully they're going to promote the sport better. And the games seem to be close in hockey. I mean, hockey is like a dogfight, a lot of these games. We have a lot of close games. In basketball, what's the joke? A buddy of mine, okay, he hosted a big event in Tampa. He's a doctor with other doctors. They got one of those kind of like rooms that could oversee the arena, and they watched the game with all the good food. And I asked him, how was the game? He said, the way basketball is. You watch the last 5 minutes, and then you've seen everything. It's not so much in hockey where you just say, let me tune in for the end. And by the way, the NBA ratings started to dip last season too, and I'm not sure they were dipping in hockey. So I just feel hockey, the playoffs are more of an element of the unknown. Okay, basketball right now, I could pencil in a few teams, and I know amongst those few teams, one of them's winning the championship for sure. I mean, I could give you like 4 teams, and one of them is going to be a virtual lock to win the NBA title. If I give you 4 teams for the hockey playoffs, there's a good chance one of the 4 isn't going to win it. So I think on that account the hockey playoffs are more exciting than the NBA playoffs. Doc, what do you think?
Well, again, I don't really watch much hockey or basketball. So if there's one sport of the two that is much more, as Mac was saying, much more prevalent in the world that people are talking about is basketball. Hockey, I think, runs a distant second when those two sports are racing. So, and that's all I got on that.
Yeah, Jack, you said, that there's surprises pretty much you can pencil in. Well, Miami surprised a lot of people last year going to the championship and, when their late surge going by everybody. So that's one instance of it. But you are probably, you're right in a lot of accounts. The only problem with hockey is it's not good for TV, Jack. You can't really follow the action like you can with basketball. The basketball game is a little bit slower, believe it or not, than hockey because there's more moving parts going on at once in hockey, and it's hard to follow on the screen, especially when they're hitting a little puck around. As I said, they tried to change that by putting some kind of red dot on it so you could follow the puck. I don't know whatever happened to that. They stopped doing that. You could actually see the slap shot hit the net. Hockey is when you say it's close, well, 3-1 in hockey is like 21-7 in football. It's hard to get a goal in hockey. So that's not necessarily true either. I mean, that's not a close game. If you lose 3-4 in hockey, you pretty much got your butt whipped in hockey. So that's not really true. But if you're just looking at what's the more exciting game, TV-wise, it's basketball. It's no doubt about it. In live, there's no doubt hockey is more exciting. There's no doubt hockey is more exciting. I've been to a couple of games. It's very exciting. They don't stop. It just don't stop. There's no timeouts. There's no the only boring part is the shoot off at the end. To me, that's the only boring part about hockey. So great points, Jack. On that side, I agree with you. Live, there's no. In fact, I think it's more exciting than the NFL live, to tell you the truth, because NFL stops too much and has too many timeouts and goes so crazy with stupid stuff. So, but if you want to see a great game live, hockey is what I would recommend to anybody. So, guys, we're going to get out of here for our first break, where we'll regather ourselves after this long first topic, which I knew was going to be, and that's why I wanted to do it. I just wanted to tell the Tom Brady fans exactly how great their quarterback is, and he is great, folks. So, man, was he lucky. Yeah. Okay, guys, we'll be right back after these messages. Oh, man.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Live. Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, the legendary boxing writer, Jack Hirsch, and our special guest, Dr. Paul Semendinger, unbelievable author, runs the Yankees blog out there, starts spreading the news, and knows a lot about baseball. I mean, you know, if I was to have a panel on any show, it would have to be you two guys. I mean, you guys know more about baseball, I think. Than any two guys I know. I mean, if there's, like I said, if there's a panel or if we had a debate group that we call a competition where I could have two guys I would want to pick to be on my team, I know I would win. I'd pick you two, no, hands down. So,
I would defer to Doc on Yankee stuff, though. I would, you know, I tend to defer to Doc. That's why you always make me go first, Mac, during the trivia thing, because you don't want me following on his coattails. I know what you're up to, Mac. I'm on to it.
It makes for a better show, Jack. That's for sure. So again, two of the best historical guys I know in baseball. So what I want to do, Jack, is to lead off this hour and is get to a question that I'll have a lot of input on. But first, let me take care of a few things in business for all you out there that are following us or just started following us today. We are on a lot of different sites. We're on Northeast Streaming Sports, a great place to go. Facebook or YouTube channel. A lot of great shows. 13 great shows out there to keep you interested, all different varieties, and they all got their special talents. Check it out if you love watching sports shows or listening to them. We're on iHeartRadio, we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on Pandora. We're getting a lot of plays from a lot of people there. It's great when you're in your car, at work, working out, you got your headphones on, you want to listen to sports. We're there for you. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel too, folks. I mean, it's very important. It gets us great guests like Dr. Paul Semendinger and others that come on the show that share their information and knowledge. It makes the show better. We also partner with Zodiac TV. They just had their big coming out party, their launch yesterday. It's going to be their global TV. It's going to be an exciting time for them, and I'm glad we're over there, part of it. So let's get back to the debate show, Jack. And I want to go. You proposed this topic. It's really interesting to me. Who is the bigger or greater franchise for the same team, the Dodgers? Is it the Brooklyn Dodgers or is it the Los Angeles Dodgers, Jack?
Oh, okay. Difficult question to answer. I mean, the LA Dodgers are coming off. They're the defending World Series champions. They were at the top of their game, even though they slipped behind the Giants, at least temporarily in the standings. That's irrelevant really right now. But the Dodgers on top of the baseball world at the current time. But imagine if the Dodgers were awful at this point in the season and they won last place last year. You might look at it a little differently. even though you shouldn't. It's more than just about winning, guys. If you're looking at it from a winning and losing perspective, it's easily the Los Angeles Dodgers, if that's all you're looking at it as. But you got to look at it as more than that. I remember one of the commentators, I don't remember who it was, guys, in 1997 was commenting on the Marlins, the Florida Marlins, beating the Cleveland Indians for the World Series. And he's saying, that it's really a shame because the Indians have one of the great franchises of all time, one of the most storied franchises. And for them to lose to the Marlins, who are relative newcomers, it would have meant more to the Indians, more to baseball, had they won the World Series that year. I mean, Marlin fans withstanding, okay? So when you talk about great franchises, guys, let's say the Red Sox had not yet won a World Series, and we could argue the curse of the Bambino is still on. Wouldn't the Red Sox still be a great franchise? That's what we're talking about. Chicago Cubs, they finally won one World Series. That's all they've won since, 1908 or so? They have one of the great franchises in baseball. When you talk about the greatest franchises in baseball in the last, 120 years, don't the Cubs rate up there as one of the great franchises? Not because of winning and losing. For the most part, they've been, losers. But as a franchise, now listen, the Dodgers and Giants are pretty evenly matched. If my stats are wrong, the Dodgers have been in existence about 64 years. The LA Dodgers have been in existence about 64 years. The Brooklyn Dodgers were in existence about 67 years. So the LA Dodgers are going to obviously catch them. But right now, it's relatively even. The LA Dodgers, I'm sure Doc, who's a stat guy, will go over this, have won 6 World Series. I mean, the Brooklyn Dodgers only won 1 World Series. They appeared in 9, the Brooklyn Dodgers, the LA Dodgers, if I'm not mistaken, in 12. So what are we exactly looking at? Well, let's look at the fan base a second. Who had a greater fan base, okay? Not an easy one to answer. The Brooklyn Dodgers they were the most community-minded fan base, arguably, in the history of sports. The way the borough of Brooklyn felt they were part of the team. That's how close they were. The players lived in Brooklyn. They would meet the public in the candy store and hang out. I mean, and when the Brooklyn Dodgers left Brooklyn, no other city/borough was affected as greatly, including Cleveland, that was devastated when they lost the Browns. The Dodger fans, some of them still haven't gotten over those who are alive. Okay, the Dodgers loving. Thank heavens they got the Mets, so they got some semblance of happiness back, with the New York Mets. And the LA Dodgers, they set attendance records, even though it was Hollywood hype and they would leave at the end of the 8th inning, the fans. The bottom line is they did set attendance records. Okay, but basically, I'm going to tell you why I'm picking the LA Dodgers on this. The Brooklyn Dodgers.
I thought you were going Brooklyn after all that.
I know. Listen, you have to make an argument. You got to look it all. But the reason
you're debating yourself, Jack.
No, but let me tell you why.
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Let me tell you the reason why. The Brooklyn Dodgers, for the most part, not completely, the most part, were a one-decade wonder. Okay? A one-decade wonder. From the moment Jackie Robinson came on from 1947 until they left at the end of the 1957 season, and they went to the World Series in 56 the last time, not 57. They were a powerhouse as far as charisma goes, winning. That they won only 1 World Series was a combination of them having to play the mighty Yankees and being a little unlucky, because you can make an argument they were just as good as the Yankees, but someone had to win. and the Yankees always found a way to beat them. Okay? But you look at the LA Dodgers, I mean, and you look at the legacies of the teams. You talk Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, Clayton Kershaw, and you look at the Brooklyn Dodgers. It was great. Campanella, Robinson, Duke Snyder, Pee Wee Reese, Gil Hodges. Had that lasted maybe 3 decades, I would say the Brooklyn Dodgers. But considering the body of work with the LA Dodgers and all the great teams they had too, when they laid, the other era between this era with the Dodgers, all their great players, and the one in the 70s and 80s, Don Sutton, Steve Garvey, and they have a lot of iconic players, Murray Wills and on from LA. I got to go with the LA Dodgers because the Brooklyn Dodgers, we don't remember them that much before Jackie Robinson. I mean, it was that one decade that they took it to another level. So I'd go with the LA Dodgers.
Jack, you had me confused. I mean, in your topics, you said you took the Los Angeles Dodgers, and you just went and talked about the Brooklyn Dodgers like they were the greatest franchise ever, and then finally said it was the LA Dodgers. In fact, you debated my point for me. So, I mean, see, the purpose of debate, Jack, is you put why you think the LA Dodgers are better. You give the reasons. But when you start giving my debate answer in there's no more debate. You know what I'm saying? You're debating yourself right now. I mean, if I'm going to debate you, you're going to tell me why the LA Dodgers are the greatest without telling me why the Brooklyn Dodgers are almost the best, because now it's not a debate. So what you did was you debated yourself for the last 5 minutes on which team was better. So let me give my answer to you.
For 1 decade, you have a point for 1 decade only.
I'm not going to tell you why I think the LA Dodgers should be better. I'm going to tell you why the Brooklyn Dodgers franchise is better than LA. And it has to do a lot more with emotion and a lot about a history than it does with actual statistics. As Doc, I know Doc may bring this up. I know he's going to pick the LA Dodgers. And success, though the Brooklyn Dodgers may not be as successful overall, they were very successful when baseball started. And I'll tell you why. I lived in a lot of places in parts of the country, Jack. I've been in the military, so I saw a lot of different parts of the world. And I lived in many different houses growing up as a kid. And when I'm taking them in to reflect on everywhere I've been, I go back to my first house, Jack. My first house, it wasn't the greatest house there was, but I look back at it as it was. It was really nice. I remember playing football in the backyard, learning how to throw a baseball, all the families and the first friends I had as a kid, and the big families, the get-togethers that we would have there. And when like I said, I first started playing sports. And it's kind of how I look at this. And maybe the best comparison I can think of in sports is the Baltimore Colts versus the Indianapolis Colts, right? Both franchises successful. But me, I still think of them as the Baltimore Colts, Johnny Unitas instead of Peyton Manning. The Brooklyn Bums didn't play in a modern day stadium. They played at a field. They weren't players that that you couldn't talk to like you can't talk today. As you said, they rode the subway with you. They didn't live in a mansion behind a gateway. They lived in your neighborhood. And to the original name of the Dodgers was actually the Brooklyn Trolley Dodgers because they rode the trolley. That was their original. And, the rivalry that started with the Giants was back in 1889. So you're going back to the beginning of baseball with the first World Series where they played. They lived in the shadow of the Yankees. Branch Rickey, Duke Snyder, Gil Hodges, Pee Wee Reese. These carry a lot more weight than Steve Garvey and Lopez. You mentioned Koufax, and that definitely. I don't know if did Koufax play in Brooklyn at all? I can't remember. I'm not sure if he played there for a couple of years, but I think he was part of Brooklyn too. And as you mentioned, they broke the color barrier. They brought in the first Major League Baseball black star, Jackie Robinson. And they did beat the Yankees eventually. I think it was Pee Wee Reese who threw somebody out after they got to a Yogi Berra. I think it was a fly ball, if I remember correctly. Roy Campanella, the catcher. Do you remember who the catcher of the LA Dodgers was? I remember Roy Campanella more than I remember a current LA Dodger catcher. So not only were the Brooklyn Dodgers successful, Jack, Not only do the names of the players carry a little bit more weight historically, but like my first house growing up, emotionally, there's no comparison. I mean, I think of the Dodgers, I think of Brooklyn, I think of them coming from New York, I think of the original power teams in baseball. LA Dodgers, I mean, though they're still the Dodgers, are still, to me, historically, not as great as the Brooklyn Dodgers. That's my answer. What do you think, Doc?
All right. So I think you're sort of both right. When you're talking about the legend and the aura and the majesty of the Dodgers, you're really talking about the Dodgers, as Jack was saying, once Jackie Robinson came by. It's interesting. In my research, and I was just looking at this as you were talking. If you were to say to somebody in Brooklyn, in 1925, what's the name of your team? They would have said, we're the Robins. They were known as the Robins from 1914 to 1931. I think Wilbert Robinson, right, was the owner or the manager or whatever, and they were named after, they called them the Robins after him. In order for a team to be great, it has to have a name, right? And they didn't really become the Dodgers and be known as the Dodgers again until after that 1931 season. And what happened with the Brooklyn Dodgers is Jackie Robinson comes and you have all those legendary players and you guys named them all. And what makes those guys so legendary is they all have great names. You had Jackie Robinson, you had Pee Wee Reese, you had Campy Campanella, Duke Snyder, and people embrace those guys because of their legendary status, and they became very like legends, myths and legends because of their greatness. And they were in the World Series all the time against the Yankees in the 50s until they left. And I think one of the things that makes the Brooklyn Dodgers so legendary and so special is they left. I think that's the same reason that the Beatles hold such a great aura as well, is they broke up. And so you don't know what would have happened. Would they have stayed great if they had stayed in Brooklyn, or would they have become a different type of team? Would Sandy Koufax have been a great pitcher in Brooklyn? He wasn't. He was a great pitcher in LA, and they had that bigger mound, right? And he was pitching on top of that big hill or whatever, and it was a bigger ballpark, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the more legendary of the two teams is definitely the Brooklyn Dodgers. If you're talking about which is the greater of the two teams, the team that was more successful, it's got to be the LA Dodgers.
Yeah, I agree with that. Again, there's no doubt as far as, World Series attendance and all that, as Jack mentioned. But I mean, if you're going to talk about a name, Steve Garvey, he was a good first baseman. And Pee Wee Reese, I mean, if you talk about, people will say he's one of the greatest shortstops in history. Whether he is or not doesn't matter. I mean, this is a name that jumps out at you.
Okay, guys, who would you rather have on your team shortstop, Pee Wee Reese or Murray Wills, who followed him, the LA Dodgers first ring shortstop?
Yeah, it's a good
Who
point.
would you rather have? Pee Wee Reese was loved. But I kind of feel the Murray Wills, who swiped over 100 bases, the biggest base stealing threat. It's hard to say no to him.
Yeah.
And the LA Dodgers do have some great moments, and they do have some legendary players. Like we forget Fernando. I think somebody had put his name in before. But, Fernando Mania in 1981 was a huge thing. And the Kirk Gibson home run in the 88 World Series. I mean, that's one of the great epic moments of baseball. It was Roy Hobbs.
Tommy Lasorda.
Sure.
He was the face of the LA Dodgers in large part. Frank Sinatra would be sitting in the first row because his buddy was Tommy Lasorda.
Very true.
Okay, but for one decade, guys, if we narrow down the Brooklyn Dodgers to that one decade, I'm going to be honest about it. They get my vote, clearly. I mean, there was never a team maybe in all of sports like they were for one decade. Because Ebbets Field, from everything I heard, I wasn't there, was a fun place to be at. A lot of fun. If we could go back in time, guys, and go to any one ballpark for one game and spend an afternoon, and the three of us got together, even though we're Yankee fans, we might say, oh, let's go to the old Yankee Stadium and see the Bay play with the Poles. I might be debating with you guys to say, let's go to a game at Ebbets Field.
Yeah.
You know, the fun thing. You know, I mean, the Yankees would probably win out because we're Yankee fans at the end of the day, but the Ebbets Field factor, just experiencing a game there. It was supposed to be a fun day for the kids with the banners.
Yeah.
And yeah.
You know, I think that is more romanticized because it was more community than it is now, right? I mean, you can't even go up and approach a player today without, you know, some security guard grabbing you or something, never mind talking to him at a donut shop or, you know, going next door and throwing the baseball around with him. I mean, that was a day when baseball was really America's pastime. They touched with the communities. They don't do that anymore. And that's a shame. Go ahead, Don.
Oh, I was just going to say, I thought you were done. And I agree with you on that. And I think probably there's been more great writers and more legendary books that have been written about those Dodgers from the 1950s, the Jackie Robinson Dodgers, than probably any other team. So they're romanticized. There's all those great books about those, Boys of Summer and so many others that are just legendary baseball books. And they're all about those great Dodgers teams. And one of the things that makes them so legendary also and so romanticized is the fact that they lost. They kept losing. And what makes them even greater then is they finally win and then they leave. Yeah. You know, a couple of years later, but then they leave and they're like, oh, and they ripped our heart out just when we got good. And that's why that, if you're asking more beloved, the most beloved team, it's definitely the Brooklyn Dodgers.
You know, funny thing, guys, I like to fantasize if you could go back in time for certain things. And let's say the three of us were together and it was Game 7, 1955, when the Dodgers beat the Yankees, and we had to hang out after the game. I'd say, guys, let's go into Brooklyn and just witness what's going on there. I mean, it would have pained us, but, you know, we would have been from another era, but going back in time just to see the people, like, going crazy and everything. And I would have probably been annoyed as a Yankee fan thinking, ha, 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 wait till you see what goes on 2 years from now when your team's exiting to the West Coast. We would have elbowed one another, you know, to give us a little satisfaction.
Do you think when they won the World Series, of course, wait till next year was a big slogan, right? Wait till next year. Do you think that maybe they had house parties where they actually, you know, the players they invited people from the neighborhood? I mean, this is what is missing in sports today, especially baseball. I mean, baseball is doing such a terrible job with reaching out in the community, in the minor leagues and going out in the communities and doing things as a sport. This is why baseball became the sport in America. And I don't know why or what has happened now where they don't even, it doesn't even see, you don't hear nothing about them within communities. I mean, you really don't hear nothing about them except for maybe giving out shots or something. But, I'm in touch with the Yankee organization and they do some things, but it's not anywhere close. The tightness between the fans and the players as it was back then. And I just don't understand that. I really don't know why they didn't do more, guys. I really don't. I wish they would. I really do. So
they should. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh my God. It's crazy. So, Jack, let me see. Let me get there. We're coming up on our second break. Boy, we're long-winded, Jack. I'm worse than you sometimes. I swear to God I am. Why don't we take our quick break and we'll come back on the other side with Lindor. And then we got a Hall of Fame thing, I think, Jack, one that we saved. We'll do the Hall of Fame one first, Jack, because we have that over for last week, whether the player should have say, or total say, I think is what it is, on what team he represents going in the Hall of Fame. So we'll do our quick commercial, get up and stretch my legs a little bit, get ready for the next debate. And, folks, we'll be right back after these messages. This thing is slow today. All right, let's try it.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. As you know, or as you don't know, if you're just tuning in, we're on live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and all-around sports knowledge guy. And we also have on as special guest, Dr. Paul Semendinger, who joins us every Saturday. You know, he's given us all his knowledge in baseball and sports in general, too. And if he doesn't know the topic, well, he'll just say, I don't know well enough, but he'll normally give us some kind of opinion, which we love to have on. Doc, we haven't had you lead on yet. So in this topic of whether, you know, especially this happens in baseball more than any other sport. In fact, I don't know if football or basketball or hockey even does this, but in baseball, the player can choose which team he represents going in the Hall of Fame. And what's your opinion on that?
I think the Hall of Fame I think it's the Hall of Fame who said that they reserve the right now. They used to allow players to choose. And I think something happened along the lines where players were getting endorsements from teams and they're saying like, hey, we'll give you this much money if you put our team on your hat. I think it's a tricky thing because if you could, people make money off these guys day and night, right? And we were talking about that before we went on. The idea of when you pay for a player, you then have the ability to make money off that player for decades, for forever, even after that player's gone. And I've tried to make that point as a reason why the Yankees should buy big free agents if they're going to help them win World Series, because those flags fly forever and you're going to market those guys forever. So when the Yankees signed Reggie Jackson to all that money, it was like, oh my God, how can the Yankees spend millions of dollars on Reggie Jackson? But they've made that money a million times over since then with all the marketing they've done around Reggie Jackson and all the T-shirts they've sold and uniforms and pictures and Yankee Reggie Jackson licensed merchandise and all that kind of stuff. So, if the player, on one hand, if the player can make a few dollars from a team to have to have their logo on his hat when he goes in the Hall of Fame, I'm not necessarily against that. I know baseball and sports want to be much more pure than that. It's the Hall of Fame. It's very special. It needs to have a reverence about it. I do get that. So I think there has to be some reason. So when Wade Boggs went in, he played a long time with the Red Sox. He played briefly with the Yankees. Then he played even briefer with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. He should not go into the Hall of Fame with a Devil Rays hat. I mean, he was only there for a couple of years. He should be going as a Red Sox. So I really think that there should be some balance, like over which team you go in. If it should be the team who you spent the majority of your career with, or where you made your biggest legend. Like, you could argue that Reggie could go in with the Yankee hat on because he hit all those big home runs in the 77 World Series. But technically, Reggie should go in as an A because that's where he spent most of his career, and he won a bunch of World Series with them as well. So I don't know if I'm giving you a firm answer. I guess I would say ultimately I would like to romanticize the sport and romanticize the idea of the Hall of Fame, and it should be the team that you spent your most legendary moments or your the most part of your career with.
So just a question for both of you before I let Jack go with this. Do you think it should be the most years or the most effective years? I mean, suppose you play 10 years with the Seattle Mariners and nothing happens, and you play 5 years, say with the Cleveland Indians, and they go to 4 World Series. Do you think it's fair that they go in as a Cleveland Indian?
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. I think there's got to be a balance there. I think it's where you made your legend, and if you were, because you could say like Tim Raines played for the Yankees for only a very brief amount of time, but that's where he was in the World Series, right? His greatest years were with the Expos. So he should really go in as an Expo, right?
And Jack, like with Roger Clemens, right? I mean, Roger Clemens played for the Red Sox for a long time.
That's a better example, yeah.
Effective pitcher. Then he goes and he pitches for the Blue Jays and he wins 3 Cy Youngs, and then goes to the Yankees and wins a World Series with the Yankees.
He won 2 Cy Youngs Blue Jays, Mac.
I thought it was a triple. I thought it was a triple, but go ahead.
Maybe I'm wrong here, Doc, if you could look that up.
I think it was 2. I think you're right.
But the point is, both of you guys are making great points. And when Doc went, he's minimizing what I have to say because he made great points that I was going to say. Wade Boggs made a fiasco of all this by going in after only 2 years as a Devil Ray. Now, Wade Boggs played 18 years in the big leagues, 11 as a Red Sox, where he formed his legendary career as being a great, great player. He actually played 5 years with the Yankees. It's hard to believe Wade Boggs played as long with the Yankees as Reggie Jackson did.
That's true.
That's hard to believe. And Wade Boggs won his only World Series as a member of the New York Yankees. And how unfair that seemed to Donnie Mattingly in a certain sense. But when you think Wade Boggs was a Yankee for 5 years, that's more than a cup of coffee here. So he was a genuine Yankee when you think of it. But still, how could he not go in as a Red Sox? Mike Mussina recently was a great example. 10 years with the Orioles, 8 with the Yankees. You could make an argument either way. He had a little more longevity with the Orioles, but he had a little more maybe impact with the Yankees. And Mussina couldn't make up his mind. I'm a big believer you consult the player in certain cases. The case, guys, of Gary Carter. They decided Major League Baseball, he was going to go in as an expo. Carter was too much of a gentleman to argue the point. And maybe he felt he should have gone in as an expo as well. But what's Gary Carter's legacy? When the name of Gary Carter pops up at you, if you're living in Montreal, you think of him as an expo. In New York, you think of him as a Met, a little more so. Gary Carter.
And he had his great moments with the Mets.
As a Met. And so what do? Doc mentioned the money aspect. Dave Winfield, 8 years. He played something like 23 years, 8 with San Diego, 9 with the Yankees. He went in as a Padre. Because they offered him $1 million to be the first San Diego Padre to go in. How could you condemn a guy for taking the money? And because it was close to the amount of time for both, I believe the Hall of Fame should allow a guy like him. They should have allowed Gary Carter to decide what uniform they're wearing. And Doc's point too, Reggie Jackson played approximately twice as long for the Athletics as he did for the Yankees. But then again, I can argue who had the greatest single game in World Series history. It was Reggie Jackson, 3 pitches, 3 homers. His impact with the Yankees was legendary. So I believe you can give the player a pass on that. Consult them. What do you want to go in as? Too. But how about this, guys? Would this work for both of you? He could wear a cap of one team in the uniform of the other. What happens if Reggie went in with the pinstripes and an A's cap? Mussina did that with the Baltimore Orioles. He couldn't make up his mind. Yankee pinstripe Orioles cap. Just an idea.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I just think the player should have the ultimate decision. I don't care about paying in that. I mean, if he wants to go in as whatever he wants to go in as, I mean, there's 2 things here. One, it's an honor to be in the Hall of Fame. I would imagine it's a big honor for them to be in the Hall of Fame, that they're recognized as part of baseball history. And this is where the debate comes in. Of course, as I said with Roger Clemens, he's a Red Sox, I think. But then he had his best years, with the Toronto Blue Jays. And then he wins the World Series with the Yankees. And I think he won that 186 with the Red Sox, if I'm not mistaken, too. So, I mean, are you gonna say that?
Well, they lost to the Mets in '86 when he was a rookie. He was a rookie. He was a rookie only then.
Right. So I mean, I think of Roger Clemens. I don't think of him as a Yankee. I think of him as a Red Sox because I'm from that era too. And I would imagine it's the era that you watched baseball too. Suppose a guy played 5 years in one decade and 5 years in another decade. I mean, and he's successful in both decades. I mean, shouldn't we just say, okay, you're going to have a plaque of where he played anyway, I think, right, guys? I mean, it's going to have a short blip of where he played anyway and maybe his stats on every team. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a big deal or not. Historically, if the Hall of Fame is supposed to be a separate entity from Major League Baseball, I guess that if it's supposed to be about the history, it would be what team you played with the longest, and that would be it. But I mean, why wouldn't a player? If I played 1 year for one team, why can't I say, even though it's an honor, why can't I say what hat I want to wear? I don't know. I don't know.
You're saying you would have allowed, but I wouldn't have allowed Boggs to go in as a Devil Ray. That was an absolute fiasco. There's no logic behind it. At least if he wanted to go in as a Yankee, it would have bothered me a lot if I was in charge. But I would have thought, look, he played 5 years and he won a World Series, so it means a lot more to the guy. I can at least understand it to an extent. But as a Ray, did they give him money for that? What was his motivation?
I just checked though. He's in the Hall of Fame as a Red Sox. He's wearing a Red Sox hat.
Wade Boggs?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he went in as a Devil Ray though.
I'm just looking at the pic, and this is interesting too. Mike Mussina's cap.
Wow.
Mike Messina's cap doesn't have a logo on it. It's just a hat.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't want to go in for either the Orioles or the Yankees because he felt it was disrespectful to both teams. He felt he had an equal impact with both teams. So
I'm telling you, here's a picture of Wade Boggs. He's got and here's his plaque. It's got the Red Sox B on it.
I think they probably changed that afterwards. They had to because it was such a fiasco. And listen, if Roger Clemens ever gets in, he should go in as a Red Sox, but it would be viable if he went in as a Yankee as well, even though we think of him as a Red Sox. But if he wanted to go in as a Blue Jay, let's say he wanted to go in as a Houston Astro,
yeah,
he pitched for them. I mean, let's say Andy Pettitte, guys, made it into the Hall of Fame. He pitched 3 years for the Astros. Wouldn't you be insulted if he went in as an Astro? Wouldn't it tick you guys off? It would bother you.
Yeah, he's
Wouldn't
a
it
Yankee.
bother you, Doc? You heard the news, Mac. He's got Andy Pettitte going in as an Astro, that ungrateful SOB all the years he had with the Yankees. We love the guy, and he elects to go in as an Astro. You know, he shouldn't be allowed. Let's say the Astros owner, they want to change their image with the sign stealing scandal. They throw $10 million Andy Pettitte's way to go in as an Astro. Let's say they offer such a ridiculous sum of money. I mean,
but then that's where you get into that argument. Like if you're Andy Pettitte and the Astros offer you $10 million to put their hat on for your Hall of Fame plaque, how do you say no to that? And doesn't he have a right to make money off of his career and what he did? Isn't that his right to do that? So that's where the debate comes.
I can see Mac becoming an Astro fan. They throw like a $500,000 Mac's way. He'll come up with the hat. The
Astros are gonna start sponsoring. It's gonna be the Houston Astros Mac and Jack show. And we'll wear a hat.
Right.
There was no sign stealing, Mac will say. That's all a myth.
But, guys, I mean, we have the problem enough of how the voting is, how we don't even know why they vote the way they vote. We don't know who's voting. We don't even know who's voting them in the Hall of Fame. So are we going to leave it up to them that we don't trust to decide who goes in the Hall of Fame under what hat or what uniform? I mean, if you think about it, the whole thing is kind of messed up, right? I mean, we don't even know why they vote the way they vote. They don't even have to say who they are voting. And then we're going to trust them to put what hat they want on the guy. I don't know. I mean, it just seems there is no established rule. At least in the NFL, they decide who you're going in as. I don't care who you play for or what teams you're on. When they put you in the Hall of Fame, they put you on as the team they feel you should be on. So there's no debate there. But, I mean, we have a problem with the way they vote, don't we?
Oftentimes.
I mean, we don't know why we don't even know the criteria really of who goes in and who doesn't. I mean, what is the standard to go in the Baseball Hall of Fame? I don't know of one. I mean, they could vote whoever they want on it. And if they get a majority vote, heck, they voted for no one last time. Nobody got in the Hall of Fame last time, if I'm correct. So, I mean, who do we trust then, Jack? If we don't trust the player to do it, who do we trust? The Major League Baseball is supposed to be separate, right? I mean, I don't know. What's the answer? Silence. Silence. I don't know.
We pretty much, yeah. It's one of those debates that could go on and be basically never ending. We didn't even have the answers in this debate. No matter how long we talked about it, it would be vague. But I think we all agree it should be the team the player had, if not the greatest impact with. He had to at least have a great historical impact for, like Doc mentioned with Reggie with the World Series, even though hypothetically maybe he should go in as an A because he was a member of 3 World Championship teams with the A's as opposed to 2 with the Yankees. But yeah, so we could go on and on with it, but we agree on that point. Yeah,
honestly, I think
Mets Lindor. I think Carlos.
Yeah. We got time. I would think that Reggie Jackson as an Oakland A. If I was putting him in the Hall of Fame, it was up to me. He'd be a Hall of Fame.
He's a Yankee, though.
Yeah,
He's in there as a Yankee.
Yeah. So anyway, so yes, so as Jack mentioned, we're going to get to the contract of Lindor, the shortstop for the Mets, and the exact topic, Jack, if you would remind me, is it a good contract? Is that the debate question? Is it a good contract?
Yeah, was the Lindor contract a good contract to give him? Okay, basically. I mean, you could interpret or word it several different ways. Do you want me to lead off with this, Matt?
Yes, please.
Okay, for those who don't know, the Mets signed Francisco Lindor to an 11-year contract at $31 million a year. And that's, what is that, $341 million total. Lindor was insistent on beating out Fernando Tatis, who had a total of $340 for 14 years. But Tatis's contract was a little different because Tatis wasn't going to be a free agent for a few more years. And Lindor was going to be a free agent at the end of the season. And Lindor made it be known that if the Mets didn't sign him before opening day, he wouldn't negotiate. He'd only talk about it once he was a free agent because he wants to concentrate on baseball. So Lindor got his contract, and we're seeing what he's doing while he's concentrating solely on baseball. He's hitting under 200. The fans are booing him. He's going to be here 11 more years. He'll be fine the next few years. He'll snap out of it. He's too good a player. He's only 27 years old. I hate these long-term contracts. 11 years. The only time I'll back a 10-year contract, if you have a Mike Trout, he's 25 years old. You sign him from age 25 to 35, a dynamic superstar. Give me a 25-year-old Willie Mays, Hank Aaron. I'll sign him for 10-year deals. Lindor's going to be 38 when it's done. The standard bearer for these long contracts will be Robinson Cano. Robinson Cano was a little older than Lindor. He signed the contract, a 10-year deal, when he was age 31. That would take him to age 41 with Seattle. Well, Robinson Cano is age 38 now. He's the age that Lindor would have been at the end of his contract. The last 2-3 years, okay, before Robinson Cano got suspended this year for PEDs, his performance slipped greatly. Now, the question is this, guys. Would you give 11 years and hope you get 6-7 good years out of it? I wouldn't. I mean, the Mets are going to be regretting this the last few years. 11 years, guys. What happens if 4 years from now Lindor is just another player, which is quite possible? This year, he's been just another guy. Lindor's had a great glove. Shortstop, traditionally, guys, when they get older, once they get 34 years old, so they start slipping their performance, their range, their movement, everything involved. So the Mets, in other words, are going to have about 5 years left on that deal, $31 million per year, superstar money for a guy who might just be another player at that point. I mean, Lindor's had some big power years before. Odds are that's not going to continue. Odds are his range isn't going to continue. He's going to be a good player. He's not that this year. He'll snap out of it. I'm not worried about it for the time being. He'll snap out of it. He's going to be a good player for a few years, but I could see a scenario where Lindor, after 4 or 5 years, is just another guy out there. He's adequate. He's okay. He plugs in the position. So you're paying superstar money for a guy who's going to be no better than okay in 4 or 5 years, and I wouldn't do it. These Albert Pujols with the Angels, that 10-year deal, that's been a lousy deal for the Angels, okay? And I just don't understand these 10-year deals. Look, the Yankees signed a 9-year deal with Garrett Cole. I could actually understand that a little bit because the Yankees were absolutely desperate for an ace. But even Garrett Cole, who going into this year would have had 8 years left on the contract. You don't know, like 4 or 5 years from now. And even like Doc mentioned with DJ LeMayo on the last show, 6 years from now, Doc, a 6-year deal, Doc is thinking, wow, in a few years from now, they're going to have 2 years left with DJ LeMayo, and they might not know what to do with him. Doc was inferring that, if I'm not wrong, on the last show. But even in DJ LeMayo's case, the Yankees didn't pay him, top dollar for free agent.
That's true.
So I can understand that. Okay, because of time restrictions, I basically said what I had to do. 11 years for Lindor was wacky. Steve Cohen's money. He could do what he wants with it.
I'm going to say, we can't hear Mac.
Now you can. You can't hear me still? Or can you hear me
now good.
Okay, so what do you think, Doc? What do you think about that? Do you think that the Mets made a huge mistake signing him to that long-term contract?
I don't. Lindor's young. Every season before last year, which was, just a shortened season, he was an all-star. He received votes for the MVP. He had years with 33, 38, 32 home runs. That's 2017, 2018, and 2019. He is probably the premier shortstop in baseball. And he was going to get 10 years from somebody. Somebody was going to pay him that money. And the Mets decided to go out and make a big trade to get him. And I think he's going to be a great player throughout the majority of that contract.
Yeah, listen, I think all the contracts are too big, too long, and too much money. That is true. Listen, Lindor took advantage of a situation which anybody would do. He said, you have to this time to sign me, this date, or I'm going to be looking at other free agency. Steve Cohen decided that, he wanted Lindor locked up by that time. He gave an ultimatum, and Cohen said, sure. Jack, I agree to a large extent to what you're saying, too. I think they sign these players when they know at the end of their term are not going to be effective, especially in the National League where there's no DH. So, that closes that down from him. But he can always move to first base. If his fielding gets a little worse than it is now, they can move him into the outfield maybe. There's things they can do, but that's not why you signed to the contract. You signed to the contract because you want him the best shortstop for the next 11 years. I don't think they feel he's going to be the best shortstop 11 years from now, but that's what it is now. I disagree with all of it. I think it's all crazy. I think Lemieux was too much money. I think anybody making $30 million a year, $20 million a year playing baseball is way too much money, or any sport really, but that's what it is. So LeMahieu's the same thing. Once he starts deteriorating at second base, they move him to first base.
Giancarlo Stanton, 13-year contract with Miami that the Yankees.
Don't even get me going. Don't even get me going.
13 years.
Don't even get me going on that, Jack. We didn't sign that. We just picked up the contract like a bunch of remember, everybody said, Derek Jeter's still working for the Yankees. That's why oh, my God, was he smarter than the Yankees were with that move. Oh, my God. But anyway, I just think that's the way sports is right now, right? Especially baseball. You pay an outlandish amount of money for even an average player now. Do you really think Gardner was worth all that money in left field? I don't think so. Not on an arm. He's a great ball player, but it's still millions of dollars for right now an average outfielder and an average hitter. But this is what the game is now. So I disagree with all these big long contracts, but that's where it is right now.
That's how you're going to get the players. You got to, and I think maybe Trevor Bauer with his $40 million for 2 years, however that's structured, right? That is really the smarter way. And we talked about this a few times, a smarter way for a team to do it. You overpay for a shorter contract, and then you're not burdened with this guy all those years on the end years when he isn't any good any longer.
And not only that,
I don't understand the mindset, guys. We mentioned Reggie Jackson before. He was a premier free agent, and the Yankees signed him for 5 years. That was the mindset of baseball. 5 years was a long time then. Where do we get to this insane 10 years?
That happened almost like Winfield signed for 10 in 1981.
Yeah.
And I think there might have been another big deal before Winfield, but that might have been the longest one. And then, it also becomes a competition between teams and players and agents and things like that. Well, you were saying it before. If Lindor wanted to make more than Tatis, right? He said, and that's what happens. I want my contract to be longer. I want mine to have more annual yearly value or whatever. And then it just becomes if there's an owner who's willing to pay it, and there always seems to be one. So.
And here's a bunch of owners that said we could handle this, right? We could handle. That's why we'll just we won't put a salary cap on there because we'll keep each other in check, and that is just ridiculous. There's another thing, and Carlos, he mentions Ellsbury.
That was a 7-year deal for Ellsbury.
Another good example. Ellsbury sure didn't play 7 years of good baseball for us. If you look at it, Bauer made a good move too because he can opt out, I think, after 1 year and sign again as a free agent. I mean, that was a heck of a deal for Bauer, what he did out there too. So that was a smart move on his part, even though they only gave him a shorter contract. Pitchers only pitch once every 4 games, guy, and they make a lot of money to pitch and play once every 4 games and only pitch 5 innings for the most part. So I mean, I don't know what that breaks down to a pitch now, but that's astronomical. And it's got to stop eventually. You would think, guys, eventually somebody has to say, I'm not doing it anymore. Or if you have to say we can't do it anymore, I think this agreement coming up soon, and I might be wrong, there's going to be some kind of cap, whether it's a soft cap or something. There might be a strike. There might be a lockout. I really believe this is going to happen, and just to save baseball, because it can't keep going like this. I mean, I think you would all agree with that, right?
Well, again, I don't know the books. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. The Yankees are worth $6 billion. So we're dealing with, and we're talking about monies that's really in large regard beyond our comprehension. They're making so much money that obviously they can afford to pay the salaries, or they wouldn't.
But yeah, when people say that, Doc, they're worth $6 billion. That's not in the bank. They don't have $6 billion in the bank. It's not liquidated. I mean, that's wrapped up in a lot of things. They may have things that are worth so much. I mean, I can have a house that's worth $150,000. It doesn't mean I have $150,000. That's what it's estimated at. And you're not going to get it when you sell a team or sell a house for that. So I mean, I like it when people say that, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, it may be estimated a worth of that, but it's not like they'll turn around if they want somebody. They can spend $6 billion. They would have to make some moves to get that money freed up, I would imagine. I mean, that's the way it is in baseball.
Well, that's why I wonder about Steve Cohen. I don't know his mindset. He had Lindor over his house for dinner. He's having the players over. It's all sweet now. By the way, the Mets record is similar to the Yankees. They're both 2 games under 500. And Steve Cohen's popular right now because he's gotten the players and his image is good. And maybe it'll stay that way. Hopefully he really is a good guy. I have no clue one way or the other.
Let me just jump and throw this in. I just typed in the words Yankees revenue 2019. And I'm not sure where the number comes from, but the first thing that comes up on Google is the Yankees revenue in 2019. The last full season was $683 million.
Right.
That's how much they brought in, $683 million. So I think they can afford a $30 million player.
But so what do they do with the Aaron Judge contract?
I wouldn't. Well, that's a great debate for a future time because we're running out of time. But he'll be 31 and he's hurt all the time. I wouldn't pay him.
But how many years? So how many years might a team up there? There's going to be a team out there that's going to offer Aaron Judge at least 6 years. One team. Chances are more. He's 31. You're talking about a team might roll the dice and give him a 7-year deal. Let's say Artie Moreno wants to put him in the outfield with Mike Trout. Okay, imagine that. Oh, that would be charismatic for sure. Artie Moreno goes 7 years. What do the Yankees do? Do they hold the line at 6 years and risk losing him? He strikes me, Judge, as the type of guy who really would badly want to stay a Yankee.
It's a good topic. I think we're running out of time, though, so we all have to say on that one.
We got about a minute or so, but let me speak on that a little bit. listen, Aaron Judge has had one good year out of the last, 3 years, 4 years, and the rest of the time he's been average and hasn't been on the field. So, I mean, he's got a great glove when he's in there, but if the best of ability is availability, right? So, I mean, if he can't play, what does it really matter? So, I mean, I wouldn't sign him to a big contract, Jack. No way. No way.
I wouldn't either. Not at this point. No way.
I mean, he's got to play a couple of years.
I have a hard time letting him go because he's the face of the Yankees. He's the heir apparent to Derek Jeter in the hearts of Yankee fans. I have a hard time. I mean, I try every way to sign him, but there are limits. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't know. I think Gardner is just as much a face of the Yankees as
Oh, no.
I think so. Gardner's been there.
Little kids have Judge uniforms. They don't have Gardner.
I understand that. But, listen, I sure wouldn't sign him to no big contract now as minutes as he's been hurt. So, guys, tomorrow we're going to be on, and This Week in Sports, me and Jack will go over the big stories in sports. We'll have Robert Butler with us. I think that's the only guest we got. So it's going to be me and Jack, and we'll definitely go over the draft. We'll go over a lot of big news that's happened during the week. So please join us. Thank you for coming on today. Enjoy your Friday night. Thanks to Doc for joining us this morning. It's always a pleasure having him on. So you guys have a great Saturday, and we'll see you tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m.